Hello, my fellow readers. The time has come. I'm finally going to talk about this book. And that's Sorcery and Small Magics. I've been talking about it for ages. I read the arc of it. I fell in love with it last year. I kept saying I wanted to review it and kept not reviewing it, like running out of time to do it. So I'm finally going to do it because I really think people should read this. It is, I believe, the start of a trilogy. I don't think it's a duology. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. But it's great, and even on its own, it's just well worth a read. I cannot wait to continue with the whole adventures and the story here, but I can wait. But I really just want the next book now. What to do? Should I read in here again, or just go with it? I'll read in and then go into the details, I think, because I think the synopsis itself would give a good layout, and then I can really get into more of the nitty-gritty, because I think some of the way that it describes it in the synopsis may not really get into what's happening. So anyway, Lee Vanderlovage is a master of small magics. He can summon butterflies with a song or turn someone's hair pink by snapping his fingers. Such minor charms don't earn him much admiration from other sorcerers or his father, but anything more elaborate always blows up in his face, which is why Leo vowed years ago to never again write powerful magic. That is, until a mix-up involving a forbidden spell binds Leo to obey the commands of his longtime nemesis, Sebastian Grimm. Grimm is Leo's complete opposite, respected, exceptionally talented, and an absolutely insufferable curmudgeon. The only thing they agree on is that getting caught using forbidden magic would mean the end of their careers. They need a counterspell, and fast. Chasing rumors of a powerful sorcerer with a knack for undoing curses, Leo and Grimm enter the Unquiet Wood, a forest infested with murderous monsters and dangerous outlaws. To dissolve the curse, they'll have to uncover the true depths of Leo's magic, set aside their long-standing rivalry, and, much to their horror, work together, even as an odd spark of attraction flares between them. Yes, but, or yes, and. So, the beginning sets this up beautifully, and I will just sum up very quickly, if you want it. This is for people who love Pride and Prejudice, that dynamic between Elizabeth and Darcy, where they initially have this clash with one another and misjudge out of pride and prejudice one another and think certain things about one or the other. This is essentially that kind of story. Hence, it is a very slow burn story between these two characters. Slow burn with a deeper complication than just someone's rich and someone's poor. There is an element here that goes wild with what happens. So, essentially, this follows Leo for the most part. He's really the main character. And Leo is attending his magic school. I would say that this would be like rivals to lovers, only one, but it's a slow burn, so there's nothing really too much that occurs in this, but also I wouldn't necessarily say that they're rivals. They are opposites, or they consider themselves to opposite, so it's not like they're trying to reach for the same thing, nor would I call them enemies. They're not enemies. They snipe at one another, but they're schoolmates that don't see eye to eye or have the same vision of what they should be achieving in life. Leo, he's from a rich family. He's kind of a spoiled boy, and he has a lot of emotional scars that we really don't understand until closer to the end of the book. And I don't want to give too much spoilers away about that, but it is part of why he only writes small magics. And that's the other thing. This world is separated with sorcerers being broken into scribers and casters. Leo is a scriber, which means he writes the spells. He does not cast them. You will have a caster that is teamed with you, or multiple casters. There's more casters than scribers. So you'll have a caster partnered with you, and you'll write the spells for the caster, and then the caster will spell them. So Leo's a scriber. And throughout their school history, Sebastian Grimm is the one who's like always overachieving. He's a caster, and he will do whatever it takes to be at the top of his class. He works hard to be the top student. And so they don't see eye to eye. We also discover throughout this that part of the drive of Sebastian is because Sebastian Grimm is from a poorer family. They are farmers, and he's fine with that life. Like, he loves his family, but he also understands that if he can graduate at the top of his class and get a noble promotion, because I believe if you're the top and graduate and get a position, you're also granted a title, that he will be allowed more money that could help support his family and farm. So he altruistically really is aiming for a better role. But because of that, like, they don't see eye to eye. He's working hard in classes and doing his best at casting, and Leo, he feels, is not. And also, because Leo is really only doing small magics, he doesn't respect or understand that, or like why he's in sorcerer school, other than he's from a noble family, so he's just kind of getting by with an easy pass, if that makes sense. So throughout the history of Leo's time in school, he has really been partnered up with his friend who works around his limitations of not doing major magics, only doing the small magics. However, in this, their final year, the teacher throws them a curveball and sets other partners up, because when you go out into the field, you may be set up with other casters / scribers that you don't know. And so, of course, this sets up the big thing where Leo is suddenly partnered with Grimm, and they're going to have to work together for their school assignment. And it's a little tense going at first. There are other characters that we meet. One in particular is doing work at the library of the school, and one day he crashes into Leo. Their notes get mixed up, and Leo grabs a spell that he thinks is his notes. It's not. It was from the library, and that is the forbidden spell that Grimm accidentally casts, thinking that it's the spell that Leo wanted him to cast, and everything backfires. Suddenly, it appears that this spell is something that causes Leo to do whatever Grimm commands him to do. So he thinks it's like a mind control spell. Either way, they know that this is forbidden magics. They don't want to admit it to the school, because then they could lose everything if they admit it to the school. So they do have a small friend group that they admit it to, and they're trying to like work on it, but they don't know what they're going to do. And I guess the next big setup would be that as they're working on that, Leo also notices that he cannot be away from Grimm for very long. It's like he gets withdrawal symptoms from that. He starts to get physically ill. And so it comes to a head like they need to break this, because he cannot live if they still have this spell. Like, physically, I believe, would not be able to continue living. Or so it seems. Like, he's getting physically ill and can't handle it. He can't be away from him. And they discover that, I think, during one of the holidays from school or whatever. And Leo finds himself, like, always seeking Grimm out on campus, even if he doesn't go and talk with him. Like, he'll go and find wherever he is and kind of stalk him. And if this is sounding at all familiar, it probably is what you think. So I think it's just when they're doing their research or whatever, but they hear about this sorcerer that's in the woods, and I think it's that they might be someone who created the spell. I don't think they're just a strong curse breaker, but now I don't remember because it's been a while. But anyway, they make a deal that yes, they'll go into the woods. Originally, Grimm was very much against it. But one, he does get to see how sick it's making Leo to be like away from him, and that the spell is getting worse as time goes on. It's not getting better. It's making Leo worse. And I think Leo does try to like leave and go to the woods on his own. He's like, no, I have to do this because I can't live like this. But he can't make it very far physically. Like, he starts to get sick on the road. And then Grimm gives in, and they go into the woods together, and there a bunch of stuff happens. Obviously, there's a lot of character development that happens once the two have to go out into the woods together, work together, in order to try to find the sorcerer and also figure out more about this spell. And it's lovely. I love their relationship that develops. It is like kind of there are these stakes with it, right? Like, this isn't all or not. Like, one, they have a timeline. They have to get this curse broken before their final exams. Otherwise, one or both could fail. And also, how are they going to live their normal life if Leo cannot be away from Grimm? So there are stakes, but at the same time, there's a lot of coziness to it. Once they make it to the woods, there are a lot of other characters that they meet that pose a lot of danger, characters and monsters. Like, I guess I'd constitute the monsters as enemies, but there's a lot of cozy vibes here. For one thing, Leo is also a musician and plays violin beautifully. That's why there's violin here, and that plays an important part in his story and his spellcrafting. And I don't know, I'm going to get into slight spoilers right here to explain something about what's going on that makes the story different. So if you want to skip that, you could just leave it here probably, or just jump ahead to the very end if you want to see like any closing remarks. But here we go. I'm going to talk about the spoilery thing. So once they make it to the sorcerer, and this is something that Leo has been suspecting for a while, but then the sorcerer does kind of come out and say it. The forbidden spell that they use is not a mind control spell. It is a love spell. So essentially, Leo has been spelled to fall in love with Sebastian Grimm. And that's fine in a way, but also not. Because obviously, if you were spelled to fall in love with somebody, that's going to have implications, and also with attraction and consent. So there's a lot of this that is Leo finding himself attracted to Grimm, even when he meets like Grimm's family, coming to understand where he's coming from. He sees him in a different light, but he doesn't know whether that is himself or if it's the spell. I mean, looking back retroactively, once he finds out, he's not sure if that is an authentic feeling that he has, because he doesn't have that ability, or doesn't know if he has that ability to decide for himself, or if it is just the spell bringing about the attraction. And that is the main complication for this part of the story, because he feels himself feeling a certain way, and it seems as though Grimm might also be feeling a certain way. But is it the right thing to move forward in any of those feelings if there's a spell involved? And so it also becomes very important to break the spell so that he knows he has his ability to make his own decisions and feel his own way, that he is feeling the feelings and it's not this spell that's controlling him. And I think that is just lovely and brilliant, and you're kind of frustrated by it because there's a part of you that's like, you're probably really feeling it, but at the same time it's understandable because there's a spell and you don't have full control. If you're under a spell, it can be influencing you. And I thought that was really brilliantly done. I liked it a lot. Again, I cannot wait to see where it goes from here, and I really hope we get that. And I hope, since this came out from Fairy Loot, that I get a Fairy Loot edition of the next book. But I don't know, I'm really looking forward to, one, there is an annotated chapter in here that I haven't checked out yet, and two, I really want to listen to the audio for this, because I did purchase the audio, and I want to make sure that there's nothing that changed in the story from when I read the arc to the final publication, because believe it or not, that has happened to me once before, and that was, I read an arc for The Bear and the Nightingale, which I love that trilogy, and then I remember discussing it with my friends at work, and we get to like discussing the end, and their ending was different from mine, so I actually had to like get the book and read the ending, and then I like read to them what the ending for the arc was, and so now I always feel like slightly worried if I enjoyed a book that I really need to also read the final publication of the book, because sometimes it does change, sometimes not, sometimes it's the same, and that's fine. But this one I'd love to listen to. I do think this keeps the ending of what I read in the arc. A lot of it looks the same, so I'm hoping. But I would also just like to hear the narration and how it sounded, because then I could recommend the audio as well. So I will just say, like, you got much support from me. I bought the Waterstones edition of this book before I knew that it was going to be the Fairy Loot book. But when I saw it was going to be the Fairy Loot book, I was very excited that they chose this book as the release. And then I was very sad because I saw a lot of people making comments about how they wish they hadn't used up their skips because they would skip this one, or like complaining about romanticies, which I would not put this in the same romantasy category as a lot of the romanticies that are out there. This is not heavy romance. I would put this, again, more in line with like a Pride and Prejudice type romance. So just in case you're wondering, there's nothing like explicit on the pages of this book. I would set like their relationship more on Pride and Prejudice level. I don't know what's going to happen further in the series. I'm not talking about that. I'm just going to say for this one. So that was kind of bothering me because I'm like, yeah, but it's not like romantasy, if that makes sense. There were some that were upset because it would be queer romance, and I think that's kind of stupid. I feel like you should read the book, find out if you like the characters, and if the characters are well developed. They are. I loved these guys. I thought they, you know, you got good backstories for both of them. You got to see what their motives were and how they related to one another. I thought it was brilliant. So anyway, seeing people being judgy about this book without even giving it a chance kind of upset me. And so I just want to make sure that I am speaking the good word about this book. I thought it was beautiful and lovely and just, a combination of like cozy, but also like there were some moments of high stakes, which you kind of knew they were going to get out of because they're the main characters, but whatever. It was just enjoyable. I wanted to see how they got out of situations. And then when they did, I wanted to know more about how they did what they did. And I don't know. I'm just happy. I do think it's funny. I also ordered the audio book from Audible. I was a little bit overly supportive of this book. I guess that's what I'm saying. But I don't know if you can. I think if you really loved a story, you gotta promote it and just recommend it. And I am one to do that. I loved this. I thought it was good. If you were looking for good character-driven fantasy, you want the relationships, or a relationship that is sort of like that Pride and Prejudice, Lizzie and Darcy relationship. If you want just good atmosphere and vibes, and also if you like characters that enjoy music, if you like all of that stuff, and you like magic and fantasy, and maybe the touches of like D&D, Sorcery and Small Magics, it's so good. And that is it for this video. Until next time, bye.